Cabinet received an update on the 2023-2024 summer crops marketing food security outlook to March 2025 and the 2024 winter crops production, which was presented by the Honorable Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, Dr. Anxious Jongwe Masuka. As at 14 October 2024, a total of 237,000 metric tons of grains and oilseed from the 2023-2024 summer season had been marketed, of which 48,334 metric tons were delivered to the Grain Marketing Board. The total grain and oilseeds marketed comprises 130,244 metric tons of maize, 28,748 metric tons of soybeans, 8,156 metric tons of sorghum, 1,259 metric tons of sunflower, 51,299 metric tons of wheat, and 18,000 metric tons of barley. The government continues to put in place measures to ensure that farmers are paid in terms of the agreed time frame. Current stocks of maize, wheat, and traditional grains in the strategic grain reserve stand at 228,712 metric tons, which is sufficient to last till January 2025. A total of 372,000 metric tons of grain is required to feed the rural population in need of food up to March 2025 at a rate of 7.5 metric tons, 7.5 kgs per person per month, whilst primary school learners will require 55,408 metric tons to April 2025 under the school's feeding program. The shortfall of 199,000 metric tons will be met from the projected 240,000 metric tons in terms of the winter wheat harvest surplus on annual requirements, modalities, and the government grain imports. A cumulative 185,132 metric tons of grain have been dispatched for social welfare distribution between February and October 2024 in order to expedite distribution of maize meal to schools, given that only 13,711 metric tons of the expected 27,531 tons for the third term have been collected by schools. The government of Zimbabwe will provide the required resources for milling, packaging, and the logistics to move stocks to the district GMB collection points, which are closer to the schools. Related to this, the Grain Marketing Board is now operating 50 agro shops, mostly in rural areas, as part of price stabilization efforts and enhancing the provision of affordable milling. The private sector, which is expected to import all the urban and stock feed requirements to March 2025, has imported a total of 812,165 metric tons of grain since April 2024. The ministry has issued 807 import permits to 420 companies to import 4,131,000 metric tons to March 2025 against an estimated deficit of 1 million metric tons. The issuance of import permits, 4 times the estimated deficit, has stabilized prices and eliminated arbitrage opportunities. Meanwhile, the 2024 winter cereals production is expected at 795,000 metric tons, which is 9.35 above the originally planned production program. A total of 114,761 metric tons of wheat has so far been harvested from the 22,153 hectares, translating to an average yield of 5.18 metric tons per hectare. Wheat delivered to the GMB is at 28,761 metric tons, out of which 26,417 metric tons is from other contracted farmers. In general, wheat harvesting is going on well, with 291 out of the available 391 combine harvesters deployed across the country for the program. Bird surveillance continues in all the provinces, and the necessary manpower and equipment are in place to counter any threats identified. The government of Zimbabwe has also introduced ward drought mitigation centers across all 1,620 wards. Treasury has availed the required resources for the establishment of all 1,035 ward centers in agroecological regions 4 and 5. The coordination of the various actors, including development partners, under the Drought Action Committee will ensure efficient use of scarce resources through avoiding duplication of effort. To date, the government of Zimbabwe has saved 101,000 livestock from death by providing 6,000 metric tons of silage and water. The Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, Honorable Dr. A.J. Masuka, also updated Cabinet on the 2024-2025 summer crops production plan, which was approved on 25 June 2024. The meteorological forecast has predicted a good rainfall season with normal to above normal rain. To further aid farmers in planning for the season, government issues planning, pre-planning and market crop prices at appropriate periods of the season. Accordingly, the pre-planting prices of maize, traditional grains and sunflower will be issued later this October, and for the first time ever, a cotton pre-planting price will also be announced. The summer plan aims to increase cereal production to 3,274,000. The overall production volumes of the major crops are expected to increase to 4 million metric tons. A total of 5.9 million plots have been prepared under the Pfumvudza Intwasa Presidential Agriculture Climate Proofing Input Support Scheme by 64% of the targeted farmers. Technical teams have been dispatched to the provinces to expedite the potholing. To date, over 40,000 metric tons of basal fertilizer out of the targeted 90,000 is now at GMB depots ahead of the 2024-2025 summer planting season launch in Mbare tomorrow. Meanwhile, contracting of farmers under the National Enhanced Agricultural Productivity Scheme is ongoing. A total of 52,500 hectares is targeted to be contracted to produce 256,000 metric tons of maize, traditional grains, soybeans, and sunflower. The Agricultural and Rural Development Authority will contract 100,000 hectares in order to produce 390,000 metric tons of maize and 112,000 metric tons of sorghum. The private sector, which is mandated by policy to ensure that at least 40% of its annual raw material requirements are met from value chain financing of farmers, has set a target of 95,046 hectares under maize, soybeans, sorghum, potatoes, sugar beans, and sunflower. Furthermore, some farmers will self-finance various crops and access inputs on the open market. Pertaining to tobacco, a total of 107,836 growers have registered for the 2024-2025 season. The area planted under irrigated tobacco is 20% above that recorded last year, while seed sales are at 37% higher. Cabinet would like to highlight that the 21 enablers being tracked under a whole of government and a whole of sector approach for the successful implementation of the summer plan are finance, irrigation, mechanization, water, seed, fertilizer, chemicals, power, fuel, pests and diseases, markets, farmer payments, capacity building, insurance, policy and regulations, coordination, monitoring and evaluation, land issues, infrastructure, security and disaster risk management. Cabinet considered and adopted the report on measures to enhance Zimbabwe's power supply security, which was presented by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Honorable Professor Mbare, who is also the chairman of the Interministerial Committee established to analyze the power supply security issues. In order to attain Vision 2030 of an upper middle income society, there is need to enhance the supply of electricity to cater for the continuous growth of the economy, especially in the productive sectors. Presently, there is a deficit of up to 400 megawatts in local generation capacity. The country currently imports 200 to 500 megawatts to cover the shortfall. Despite now charging a cost-reflective tariff, the Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority still faces challenges which negatively impact its ability to deliver on its mandate of providing electricity to the nation. Accordingly, Cabinet approved a number of measures to enhance the country's power security. The structural challenges are being addressed by the Mtapa Investment Fund in a process involving the bundling or merging of some entities under ZESA, as recommended by the independent consultant who was commissioned to undertake the task. This will result in a more simplified and efficient governance and management structure. Supply-side interventions include the rehabilitation of Wange units 1 to 6 under a build, operate and transfer agreement which is set to commence this year. The Mtapa Investment Fund is also putting in place measures to cater for the foreign currency requirements for independent power producers to address the low uptake of net metering from solar-generated electricity, ZESA has been specifically directed to promote the facility and streamline the pertinent procedures and requirements in order to increase uptake. The loss of electricity during transmission is being attended to through the establishment of a joint venture between ZENT and QLV for the manufacture of cables and in dealing with theft and corruption. To enhance revenue collection, ZESA has been directed to speed up the installation of prepaid meters in order to effectively deal with debtors, while the Mutapa Investment Fund is establishing a foreign exchange discount facility against the ZESA's debtors book to meet the current creditors. Investment in research and development for the local manufacturing of various parts and components of power generation and transmission equipment is being promoted. The implementation of the foregoing measures will go a long way in enhancing ZESA's capacity to deliver on its mandate in terms of providing electricity to the nation. Cabinet considered and adopted the proposed industrial reconstruction and growth plan, which was presented by the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Honorable Mangaliso Ndlovu. Cabinet would like to advise that the Zimbabwe Industrial Reconstruction and Growth Plan 2024 to 2025 serves as a transitional framework for aligning industrial policy with National Development Strategy 2, following the lapse of the Zimbabwe National Industrial Development Policy 2019-2023 in December 2023. This will address the immediate challenges faced by the manufacturing and the commercial sectors, while laying a solid foundation for accelerated industrial development under Zimbabwe National Industrial Development Policy in order to achieve Vision 2030 aspirations. In line with the 2025 budget strategy paper, theme of building resilience for sustained economic transformation, the policy framework will focus on growth opportunities in the manufacturing sector by reducing costs of doing business, strengthening value chains, promoting SMEs, linkages, and improving the ease of doing business, enhancing government and the private sector collaboration, whilst considering developments in bilateral and multilateral agreements and engagements such as the African Continental Free Trade Area, the Southern Africa Development Community, and the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. Cabinet would also like to advise that on the strategies to deal with the commerce issues constraining industrial growth, the focus will be on the quality assurance and the trade measures, the ease of doing business and the formalization of businesses. Accordingly, on quality assurance, the plan will enforce consumer protection and trade measures legislation, as well as quality standards to safeguard against smuggled and substandard goods. Regarding the ease of doing business, the plan will ensure the cost of doing business is streamlined to enhance competitiveness. In view of the fact that Zimbabwe's economy is an informal sector, the plan will introduce a simplified registration and minimum mandatory licensing requirements that promote formalization of the economy. Through the Shop Licensing Act, measures will also be implemented to promote electronic transactions and the development of the SMEs formalization strategy will be expedited. It will then be compulsory for businesses to use point-of-sale machines for all businesses. Major focus to promote growth of the manufacturing sector will be on import substitution, manufacturing of raw materials for the manufacturing industry, the utilization of idle manufacturing assets, the local content strategy implementation, and the value chain optimization, rural industrialization, export development, research and innovation for industrial development, and financing for manufacturing. Stock taking of idle infrastructure will be conducted with a view to legally and procedurally make them available to potential investors and businesses in order to assist in terms of operating space. The revitalization of the bus and truck manufacturing initiatives in the country will be an indication of the trajectory in terms of the economy, which will serve to unlock more funding in terms of investment. Priority will be given to the institutionalization of the Buy Zimbabwe program, the harmonization of standards and establishment of specifications in promoting the public procurement of locally available goods, an incentive structure for companies procuring and supporting the local industry in an upward ratio of 70 to 30 for local versus imports will be developed and operationalized. The plan will foster and facilitate linkages in all sectors through backward and forward linkages. Rural industrialization is at the center of the Second Republic. The key enablers to the implementation of the rural industrialization drive includes the identification of land for the development of industrial parks, the identification of competitive and comparative advantage resource endowments and the industrial projects in rural districts, setting up an interministerial committee on rural industrialization, which will periodically update cabinet on progress. It should also be noted that rural industrialization will take on board automation of existing industries to enhance competitiveness, establishment of hubs across the country, including within farming areas, with a view of creating markets for agricultural products. The plan will prioritize export of value-added products, trade promotion, strengthening of regional integration, and active participation in the African Continental Free Trade Area, guided trade initiatives. Furthermore, the proposal is to reintroduce export incentives to motivate increased investments for exports. The plan will pursue industrial transformation through research, development, and innovation. Emerging issues and technologies such as artificial intelligence, smart manufacturing, and digital industrialization will be on board. To address challenges with access to affordable long-term financing, an array of options will be utilized, including equity financing, private and government funding. The Industrial Development Corporation of Zimbabwe will enhance its role as a development finance institution supported by treasury injections. Additional funding sources will also be pursued, including working with the multilateral finance institutions. Efforts will be made to nurture and improve the environment for the participation of private sector funding mechanisms. Priority has also been given to harmonization of the plan with sector-specific initiatives such as the Education 5.0 policy position by government under the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development. which seeks to move the nation forward towards an innovation-led and knowledge-driven economy. As such, plans to establish industrial parks as well as banks that will absorb and capacitate the graduates who have experience from working at university industrial hubs will be pursued. Cabinet received and approved an update report on the preparations for the hosting of the 2024 Regional World Children's Day celebrations, which was presented by the Minister of Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare, Honorable July Moyo. The 2024 Regional World Children's Day celebrations will be held at Baobab Primary School on the 16th of November 2024. The event will be attended by 7 countries, namely Botswana, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. The event will also be attended by approximately 5,000 to 10,000 children, with the majority of them coming from the Matabeleland provinces, while 450 children will come from other provinces. Local schools in Hwange are also expected to participate and to attend the main event. A range of activities will be conducted across the country building up to the main event, and most of them will be conducted in Matabeleland North Province and at Ndlovu Secondary School as a way of sensitizing Zimbabwean children on the historic regional event. The activities will include school quiz competitions on children's rights, sports tournaments, gallery walks, and school debates. The monumental lighting will be done at the No Man's Land post at the Zimbabwe-Zambia Bridge. The post holds much pre-independence history which the children can learn from during their march and during the lighting ceremony. In terms of entertainment, selected traditional groups will perform during these key events. The government of Zimbabwe will endeavor to have legacy projects at participating schools in the area. The schools have made proposals for these legacy projects. Cabinet considered and adopted a concept paper on the theme and activities to mark the 5th anniversary of the Southern African Development Community Anti-sanctions Day, to be held on the 25th of October 2024. The SADC Anti-sanctions Day will coincide with the Zanu PF 21st Annual People's Conference, which will be held from the 22nd to the 27th of October 2024 in Bulawayo Metropolitan Province. The event will be held under the theme Embracing Innovation Towards Vision 2030. The relentless fight against illegal sanctions. The theme is consistent with the 44th SADC Summit theme, and the theme also acknowledges the efforts by the Second Republic to strengthen the economy through science, technology, and innovation, which will go a long way in addressing the negative impact of illegal sanctions in various key sectors of the economy. His Excellency the President, in his capacity as the chairperson of SADC, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, will deliver a national address. Several activities have been lined up to mark the SADC Anti-Sanctions Day, and these include the following: the SADC Anti-Sanctions Solidarity Summit, which will comprise the media endowment, the roadshow, the cultural and musical events, the solidarity marches, and public awareness campaigns. Other activities include innovation exhibition by primary and secondary schools and tertiary institutions, panel discussions and workshops, and documentary among other issues. In the wake of a fire incident at Mbare Traders Market on the 8th of October 2024, Cabinet received and adopted the report on the rebuilding of the market in partnership with the private sector, as presented by the Minister of Local Government and Public Works, Honorable Engineer Daniel Garo. Following the incident, which affected 4,695 traders and income generation capacity of millions of people, His Excellency the President Dr. Idi Mnangagwa declared a state of disaster at the market. The declaration will facilitate the appropriate response measures to the incident. Pertinent to note is that similar fire incidences have been recorded at other markets in the city of Harare, with the primary causes being the use of highly combustible materials and lack of fire preventive infrastructure. The city of Harare does not have the capacity to address the incidents. The government of Zimbabwe has to intervene in order to promote private sector participation to complement efforts by the majority of Zimbabweans involved in trade. Accordingly, Cabinet approved the engagement of a leading engineering, construction and development company to partner the government of Zimbabwe in rebuilding the Mbare Traders Market under a design, engineering, procurement, construction and finance model. This model will ensure that high quality facilities are completed and commissioned within the shortest possible time. It will also allow traders to resume operations in an orderly environment that facilitates formalization and payment of taxes. The model can and will be replicated to upgrade other similar markets across the country. Meanwhile, the government will, under the disaster management framework, provide the necessary livelihood and social assistance support to ensure that the affected traders pull through the immediate difficulties they face. Longer-term sustainability and resilience building mechanisms for traders will also be addressed under the framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for presenting today's cabinet highlights. I now invite the first set of 3 questions from our colleagues from the press. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Blessing Kijawa from the Era of Newspaper. I just wanted to confirm from the Minister, which is the renovation of Mbare alone, or there are also, like we have other markets like Glenview, which also explain the issues of fire. So is the government only looking at Mbare alone or other markets? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Constant Como freelance. I would like to ask the Minister of Agriculture to understand the kind of support rural communities are being afforded to save their livestock. I'm asking this in view of some communities like in Togo who are coming up with the climate change resilience programs in trying to manufacture stock feed and serving their animals. So I just want to understand the kind of support such communities are being afforded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Yes.
Good evening, it's Josephine Mugio from ZBC. On the Mbare issue, I would like to find out if there is a certain time frame that has been put in place for the renovations to be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
I think about livestock interventions, Dr. Masuka can respond.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank the questioner for the question. Noting that we're going through the worst drought in 43 years, government put in place a drought mitigation strategy. In fact, we started with search and rescue, mitigation and resilience building. And in terms of rural communities, we identified that of the 5.7 million cattle, 2.7 million cattle will be at risk. So the focus is on availing water, is on availing feed, but also ensuring that because deep tanks will have run out of water, that we establish disease management centers for livestock, and also because there are many among us who view drought as an opportunity to profiteer, that they will be able to off-take the cattle at very reduced prices. We then banned the sale of livestock at households and villages, and that this be done at these drought mitigation centers, as we call them. With 1,620 rural wards, 1,035 of these are in regions 4 and 5. And we said these are the wards that we will prioritize in terms of drilling balls with the 31 drilling rigs that the government has, and we also have summoned the private sector to be able to assist. To date, we have covered 418 wards, and we just received the resources from Treasury last week to be able to do an identified number of 635 additional wards that will establish drought mitigation centers. So this is the effort that government is making. We know that the livestock eventually succumb, not because of feed, but largely because of the water issue and the distances that they have to trek in order to find water. We have also mobilized as government 15,000 metric tons of silage, and we have 8 dedicated 30-tonner trucks that are distributing feed to the most needy wards. We've also launched an educational awareness for rural communities so that they can formulate feed at a local level using locally available resources, including Manjekenje program. So that is what we have done as government. And the week before last, we also now put in place a statutory instrument in terms of the Fertilizers, Farm Feeds and Remedies Act of 1972 to ensure that the wheat that is being harvested, the stover, was declared feed. So those farmers that are doing wheat will see the business in baling and availing that stover nearer to communities. We've also urged communities to complement government efforts because the cattle belong to them, by mobilizing resources at the local level so that they can expedite the transportation of the available feed, because the 8 30-tonner trucks are certainly not adequate to be able to move feed to all the needy wards. Having said that, we are currently looking at possibilities of using rail to move feed, just like we are using rail to move food from surplus depots to deficit depots. So this is what we are doing as government, and to date we have managed to save just over 100,000 cattle from death as a result of this robust whole-of-government approach and intervention in rural communities. Sadly, we've lost 4,207 cattle due to drought. Any death is unacceptable, and communities and government must do more to save our livestock. The rains will shortly be upon us throughout the country, and we expect a normal to above normal rain season from November. So the critical period remains as the next 3 weeks. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. The power cuts that we've been experiencing have been occasioned by the low water levels and live water levels in Kariba, which have curtailed the production of power from that power facility. So much really depends on the rainfall prognosis, and the reports we're getting from our meteorological department is that we will have a normal to above normal rainfall pattern for, between now and March next year. And given how these things work, the catchment area for Kariba Dam, but also domestically as well as its source, really will start yielding good water yields towards sort of the beginning of next year. So we really expect Kariba to be performing much better by sort of March, April next year. So if you're thinking of it in terms of power cuts and so forth, at least the contribution of Kariba facility will improve as we move to the end of the first quarter of 2025. Then on the issue of, I think the issue of decommissioning has been dealt with, but I think you meant that perhaps the Kariba might be shut down because of the low water levels. I mean, given the answer to the first question, we don't expect this to happen. On the Zimbabwe side, as you know, we share this facility with Zambia through, and it's managed through ZRA, Zambezi River Authority, which is co-managed through that company as well as the interministerial committee on both countries, comprising the Ministers of Energy, Ministers of Finance, as well as the Attorneys General. So really, our prognosis is that on the Zimbabwe side there shouldn't be any difficulty at all. We haven't even started digging into the initial 5% allowable overuse in terms of our water allocation. And then once you go over the 5%, you then move into the reserve. We're not there yet there in Zimbabwe, so we don't even expect to pay a penalty. On the side of Zambia, let me not comment, it's a foreign country and I'm Minister of Finance for Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The 25th of October is the 5th year that SADC as a group is campaigning in solidarity with Zimbabwe for the total removal of sanctions against Zimbabwe. And you will know that this effort was in fact introduced by the late President Magufuli when he was chairman of SADC 5 years ago. So Zimbabwe will continue to honor this event and to encourage people to campaign against removal of the illegal sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe by those countries that imposed sanctions on us. The fact that the United States, you called it, eased the sanctions by removing Zimbabwe from the OFAC platform and handing it over to another platform, the Magnitsky platform, is no encouragement to anyone, certainly not to Zimbabwe, to say that they eased these sanctions. We want a total removal of sanctions on Zimbabwe because they're illegal. So we are going to have a campaign in Zimbabwe to drum up the issue of the removal of sanctions on the day, on the 25th of October. This day is coming at about the same time as Zanu PF is holding its annual conference. So the events, most of the events that we are talking about will be held in Bulawayo, and our own president, His Excellency Comrade Dr. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, will issue two statements. He will issue the first statement as President of Zimbabwe in
support of the anti-sanctions movement, and you issue a second statement as chairman of SADC to emphasize the same on behalf of the 15 other countries that are in SADC. So until all sanctions are removed on Zimbabwe, and until ZEDERA is repealed by Congress, Zimbabwe will be relentless in pushing for the removal of sanctions on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shah.